This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
Today's podcast is being sponsored by MadLearn, my favorite tool for app building and the one I'm using this year with my 9th grade students. Stay tuned at the end of the show to learn how you can get a hands-on free trial. So today we're talking to Brian Page, a former Milken National Educator of the Year. He's spent 15 years as an educator. He's also creator of the Self-Help Homework Hacks course, which lets students age 13 to 22 learn research-backed homework hacks and independent learning strategies. So we're talking about 10 hot homework hacks every parent and student needs to know. So where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with just the introduction and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Essentially, the goal is to address the independent learning strategies that are a lifelong learning skill. So this isn't a topic such as math or science where the idea is to help a child learn a specific content area, but rather it is the strategies that we know through science are an effective way to learn independently. And the reason that I decided to do this is because as a father myself, it's really hard to find the time to be able to support your own children with all the activities that they already have. And it's really hard for teachers to do the same thing. And so I realized that it was a resource that I have never seen, that I know that parents could find extremely useful because it's a matter of putting it in the child's hands for them to understand what they need to do to learn independently. And it takes the pressure off of parents who come home, like my wife and I, we both work and we're really tired, we're exhausted, we want to do a good job, and either we lack the time or perhaps you lack the resources to hire a private tutor, or you just lack the expertise. You know, when students are in high school, AP classes are tough. You know, they might come home with material that we don't remember. And this really is designed to help students dig into that material and have a deeper understanding themselves.
So where do we start? What's number one?
What does learning look and feel like? So we wanted to address the fact that learning is active. When you're learning, you're actually doing things and you're working. It's not passive. You're not highlighting something. You're not rereading material. And so if you're looking at somebody who's learning, you're looking at somebody who's actually doing. The second hack is how to get organized. And for myself, this was something I saw as a classroom teacher. There seemed to be a distinct difference between students who earned really good grades and students who perhaps struggled a little bit more. And oftentimes that difference is just their organizational skills. One of the things that I recognized in my career is that when I assigned something that was for homework, which was rare, I don't really love homework myself, but when I would assign it, the students who would instantly open up their binders and write down what they need to accomplish and when, I almost every time knew that student was going to earn an A because they were organized. So I just felt like that should be a foundation of any student who's an independent learner. And so we dive into that. And before we go on to the next hack, I want to point out that how we go about teaching students these independent learning strategies is of most important to us because students right now live in a different world than we all lived in growing up. And they open their phones and oftentimes they're engaged with fast-flowing social media apps. And so the design of this course was to have that look and feel of these 3, 4, 5-minute videos at the most that are super engaging like this. And I'm not the only educator that is a part of it. There are 3 past Milken National Teachers of the Year, other Teachers of the Year, a current physician, current college students. One's a neuroscience major, another's a pre-law major who overcame dyslexia. And all of us pitch in and have our own units to be able to do it in a way where it feels like it's rapid fire, but at the same time, you move at your own pace and there's reading material to support it. The next would be just what your body and your brain need to learn. I feel this now working from home. If you just sit all day long, it's exhausting and you need to get up and moving. You need to exercise. And exercise doesn't mean being a state champion track athlete. It could just mean walking with friends. And we just dive into the importance of what being active could look like for you and what is the right kind of way to treat your body. Why it's important to drink a lot of water. Why the right kinds of foods are important. As a parent myself, I feel like that so much about food is associated with body image. And I think that's a really toxic thing. And for us, what we like to address is just food as fuel for learning and feeling good about yourself. The next learning hack would be the course long learning strategies. A lot of strategies from the book Make It Stick or Powerful Teaching, where you do things, the scaffolding of concepts, obviously, but interleaving and spacing, where those strategies we know through science are effective. Cramming is not. And so we explain in detail how it is that you go through an interleaving process. What kinds of specific strategies can you use, like retrieval boxes, as an example? So instead of just an old school note cards, which we know that they're effective, but not as effective as they could be, how you can take note cards and use retrieval strategies that incorporate spacing to become a more effective independent learner. We dive into specific note-taking strategies, not just Cornell notes. No, Cornell notes are just fine. There's nothing wrong with Cornell notes, but so much about how a student learns really is going to drive down deeply into what is their preference. I actually had a student do a lot of this part of the course because she's pre-law, she's a brilliant student at The Ohio State University, and she overcame dyslexia. So she shares how she does sketchnoting, which is more visual note-taking and how that's effective. And then obviously there's other strategies that we incorporate as well, providing not just these 3 to 5 minute broad overviews that are engaging in a social media feel, but also the resources to dive deeper and understand it, both extension resources of videos and then reading material. So mnemonics, and obviously mnemonics are, when we think of mnemonics, we think of the ABCs, right? I challenge you to try to say the ABCs without singing it or hemming that tune. So it just goes into different mnemonic strategies that students can learn on their own. And then the next strategy after that is something that I find to be essential. And that's the difference between a growth and fixed mindset. As the son of a special education teacher, I need to express how important it is that our students all believe that they can learn and that IQ is not fixed. It is that your brain is a muscle that can grow, and that a test score is not a stamp of intelligence, but rather it's an opportunity to understand what you need to spend more time learning. So that obviously for us was really personal. For students who perhaps struggle a little bit in school, we wanted to do what we could to portray to those students that unfortunately the way our school systems are designed, I'm not a total fan of like grading, for example. It gives you this feel that you earn something and you are something. And that's just not how the real world works, right? The real world is us always trying to take these ideas and these challenges that we're faced with at work and then learning how to overcome them. And it's not a stagnant process. It's this ongoing process. Just look at what you've accomplished, Vicki. Most of the things that you do right now didn't exist 30 years ago. You just constantly are learning and growing and then sharing with teachers. When I go into independent reading strategies, that really builds off of a growth mindset. And then finally, learning in pairs or small groups. And the first thing we try to address is that, yes, sometimes when you do group work in school, sometimes it feels more like they're teaching you how to work with people who don't like to work more than they're teaching you how to work with groups. But we really try to dive in with some specific strategies on how to work in partnership with others.
You said this is younger ages all the way up 13 to 22. So I have a 21-year-old. I'm thinking, hey, I need to get him to go through this course. Parents, as you've listened, I do want to go back and just point one big thing out that Brian has said, this interleaving and spacing. I've been reading a great book over the past few months as we're recording this called Small Teaching. And it's actually about how these principles are applied in the college classroom, this whole principle of interleaving. And helping our students have these strategies is very important because it's part of their success. I work with seniors is one of my classes, and I had a parent who said about a particular concern with this particular student, oh, well, he'll learn it sometime. And I said, well, do you want him to learn it now when he's under your roof, or you're paying $10,000 a semester or however much it is at your college then, so these are things that will pay off dividends for the rest of their lives.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. If you want to learn more, actually, it's under my company, Modern Husbands, where we simply believe that in the new modern world that husbands should work with their partners for an equitable division of labor and money at home. and that includes parenting. And our goal is to provide these types of resources to parents to support their children.
Excellent. Thanks, Brian. Today's sponsor, MadLearn, is an easy tool for students to use to build apps of their own in a private space for just you and your students. You can publish it and share it with a limited audience or design something bigger. When people ask me my favorite app building tool, I always say MadLearn. MadLearn is an amazing collaborative app building tool. Not only have I used MadLearn for the first global collaborative app building project, I love having my students build together and host a Shark Tank competition. I love how my students can edit together but also view live changes on their smartphone using a QR code demo that is still private just to them and me. Their site is full of every presentation rubric and even a full curriculum, so I can teach design thinking and app building to my students. Go to coolcatteacher.com/try MadLearn and sign up today for your free trial. That's coolcatteacher.com/try MadLearn.
You've been listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. If you want more content from Vicki Davis, you can find her on Facebook, X.com, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Cool Cat Teacher. Thank you for listening.